Yo, we live with Never Fade Facts. What has changed since we last talked besides you being up 3x?
Let's go. 23 up only. We heard it all day for Goodmonth. He's buying the bottom of Solana. He's aping NTD guys. He's creating content that's going viral on the timeline. A lot has changed, bro. We got a lot of winners in 2023 that we talked about here, and we got some special guests. So who are we talking to today, Good?
Man, I am stoked. So we got Mighty Mouse and Wes on this call right now. They run Webacy. So Webacy is a Web3 security protocol. It's exciting. I'm excited to dig into it with them. Kind of a roundabout way of how we got introduced. Facts, you got pinged a while back when you were, I think you just started the Shill and Villain slots, 10 a.m. Might have been when you were running the ship there over Thanksgiving. I think that's when it was. When you got pinged about Webacy, you floated me some questions. I was like, man, this is interesting. So I fired you back some questions, and then I don't know where it went, but flash forward, Art Basel, I'm in an Uber to head to this house party. It's Mighty Mouse's house party. Pitches me on his company, and then my triggers go off. I'm like, yo, I think this is the same company that we got pinged on. So it's kind of like a roundabout organic happening. Mighty Mouse, Wes, welcome to the pod. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's hear a little bit about yourself. Quick, brief background. Mighty Mouse, I know you have some achievements in the background. You're also in Web3 now. You're putting on a new face, a new energy, and still bringing that execution. Let's hear a little bit about your background. How'd you get here?
Yeah, happy to share. Thanks for having us. Yeah, I came from the Web 2 world. That's where our mutual connection came from. We were both in mobile. I was in mobile advertising. Ended up, my last company raising, close to 40 million in funding. It was a little more than we needed, but it was good to get that experience, be in the weeds, and just learn a lot about different industries. Because in advertising, you could touch on pretty much anything from CPGs to retail to fast food to insurance to auto. I mean, I learned about a lot of different things across different categories. Fast forward how I got into Web3 right before we sold the company. So we sold it in 2019. We actually attempted to create a blockchain product for advertising, mostly because the transparency, as you can imagine, in advertising was sorely lacking and still continues to be sorely lacking, especially in the way that dollars are spent and ads are shown. Believe it or not, is still an issue in 2023. And so we wanted to create some level of transparency where ad data could get recorded on chain. So that was like my first foray, and that was 2017. And I had bought a bunch of ETH then, and not realizing that, several years later, because we didn't end up touching it, it would become useful. At least personally.
You didn't realize you were packing bags. You were just
packing whatever. We just needed it to get the product done. Yeah, we just had some ETH to test. Actually, I don't really even ask for it back, but I had bought it personally and used some of it just to test when we were building this thing on Ethereum. And then, I'm sure that the whatever gas fees we ended up incurring just to test probably ended up being in the tens of thousands now, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Real quick question on that, because I actually have a similar story to that I've never actually shared. 2014, I grabbed my bag of ETH because I tried to get my CTO at Goodmonth Labs and running KCAP. I tried to get him to start an Ethereum company with me, and I bought Ethereum right in front of him to try to motivate him to get in just for test coin use case. So I've actually never shared that, but that's a very similar, I share that similar path. That's a great way to get
That's in. How we Jehovah's Witness it in. I remember being at a Knicks game. I was actually with a buddy of mine. I forgot how many years ago this was. And I was like, yo, I'm just going to buy ETH right now. I bought it at $430 at the time. Yeah. And it went down a lot afterwards. And I looked like an idiot. And then now I'm just like, we still talk about it to this day. But anyway, so
no, that's great. Four seats at the Knicks games, buying ETH. I think I hear that.
No, it wasn't 4 seats. You just assumed.
Flow seats at the Knicks.
Send the G6 to Cali. Send the G6 to Cali, Mighty Mouse.
This is section 328. I'm kidding. So that's my story, but I'll let
Love
Wes
it.
share his.
Yeah,
Thanks, man. Wes, let's hear
great
it.
story. I love it. Thanks for having us on, guys. So I'm I'm a bit of a youngin'. I graduated college about 2 years ago, but
Let's
while I
go.
graduated, it was like prime time pandemic, and I went to university here in Cleveland, where I'm from, and I was an internal auditor at a bank straight out of school. But I mean, in my pastime when I was sitting at home working, I was pretty big into crypto. I started an Ethereum mining operation. Ran that for about 2 years, and that's primarily how I got into NFTs. So I jumped into NFTs, not just straight up whaling into them, but I was actually creating them. So I launched 2 of my own projects in the past before joining WebC as a growth lead. But it's been a wild ride so far. I've been super excited for what we've been building. And I never
Yeah.
thought 2 years ago I'd be where I am today.
Wes was just super impressive because he self-taught himself Solidity. And we actually were originally trying to find someone to help build us our first contracts. And he
Yeah.
stepped up to the plate. And we're really grateful to have him.
Wes, dude, what? I mean, I'm so jealous of you, man. Like, you pop out of college and you get into NFTs. Like, is this real life? Like, I popped out of college just wearing a suit and tie. You probably were wearing a suit and tie at the bank, auditing some centralized logs, and you're like, man, this is broken. I'm about to go Web3.
Yeah, exactly. It was I mean, once I was working from home, it's like, and I found out I could do it full time with NFTs. I didn't even have a reason to look back.
Right. Yeah. That's one thing we kind of always talk about, that pandemic was a forcing function for NFTs and create these narratives for people at home to connect because they're so, isolated, and they had a computer up next to them, their little side hustle on their Mac or PC they had next to them. And they just kind of started to find that like newfound spark, that newfound joy.
Yeah. And
So that's,
at the time, it was pretty much like I had to figure out if I was going to do something in the space, what could I do? So teaching myself Solidity was the way. And I was also sick and tired of paying people in the past to develop contracts for me.
yeah, man, that's amazing. So let's dig into Webacy. Mighty Mouse, can you hit me with the value prop of Webacy? Like, hit me with that quick pitch, and then we'll get into the details, which is what people really care about that listen to this podcast. But if you were, if I'm a VC, how are you going to pitch me?
Yeah. Webacy is a platform to help you protect your digital assets for the unexpected. So we've created a suite of tools that essentially help you ensure that if something like a hack were to occur, or if you lose your keys, or if you were even to die, I know that sounds very morbid, we have something to cover you. The premise is quite simple. In the world of physical assets, we've built so many things to help us protect, right? I'm talking everything from locks and keys, as literal as that sounds, right? To insurance policies, to safety deposit boxes, to you name it. And when it comes to virtual or digital assets, there isn't a ton, right? And we created places for people to hold them, but not a lot of tools to help protect them. So that's what Webacy is today. And our overall goal, if you were to one-liner it, is basically to become like a Norton for your crypto, or like a Norton for your digital assets. And that's where we've landed.
Yeah, and I got to get into that because, I come from the background of building the first Mac OS native antivirus solution that was sold off. So, that AV world and that cybersecurity world is near and dear to my heart. So now we're going to get into kind of the granular details of it, where we can really crack into it, what people are really here for to listen to. I appreciate the high level pitch. The value prop gives us some good context. Fortunately, I'm not a VC, so I don't have the VC money to give for you to take, but I do like getting in nuts and bolts here, which is what is exciting.
Let's dig in.
So there's 2 things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're the same functionality helps them both, and I think I got that right, but correct me if I'm wrong. But there is a use case for a backup wallet, and then a use case for a panic button. Am I correct?
100%. So I can kind of move a couple steps back to explain the context of how we arrived to this as the solution in the first place. And when you think about the perception of security and safety right now, the common, most popular dialogue is a hardware wallet, right? It is mainly to secure the most obvious thing that you see in front of you, which is the key, right? So when you think about it, you don't want to have your keys to your apartment lying around outside or in the hands of a criminal. You want it to obviously be in your own possession. And so hence the immediately parallel for us humans was, okay, let me do the direct corollary digitally, which is to protect the key in the form of a hardware wallet. And that's cool and everything. And then you go into the software side, right? Then you have Gnosis and Safe, or they're calling it Safe now, around multi-sig. And like, let's have multiple people and multiple touch points for ensuring that the key itself is safe. Now, we took it a step further, right? We said, hey, there has to be an opportunity to actually protect the movement of assets, not just the access, the movement and transfer of these assets. And so hence, when we were first architecting what we wanted to do, we were like, okay, how do we actually get the assets out of your wallet in the event of something happening, not just getting into it, getting it out. And so that's where Panic Button and Backup Wallet came to be, which was in the case of a backup wallet, you're essentially able to use a smart contract that has your assets pre-approved to, and to move the assets to that backup wallet in the event of you losing your keys. So your original wallet is already done for. You lost the keys to that, but you can still access the assets and to move them into that backup.
And this is
Panic.
Huge.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I want to dig into backup wallet before we go into Panic, if that's okay.
Sure.
Are you cool with that?
Sure.
So
yeah.
So backup wallet is interesting because so a lot of things, but you hear in the news that somebody they invest in like a $100,000, $500,000 search team to go look for a PC in a dump because they have 10 B's worth of Bitcoin on it that they don't have the keys to and they belong on the computer. In this instance, and this is why I'm really kind of passionate about what you're doing, specifically because it's permissionless, but also just like the fail safe that this could provide is that as long as that set approval is still active, like homeboy that lost his PC in the landfill and his keys were there, if he would have just set an approval like this for your backup wallet, he could go and claim it. And he doesn't even need to claim it via your UI. Like, we don't think you'll go out of business, but if you ever did go out of business, he could still claim it from the contract that's decentralized. Is that correct?
Exactly. So we wanted to make it so that it didn't depend on our UI. You could use any block explorer. And I think the concept we want to introduce, because I know your audience wants to nerd out, is this idea of like dual custody or like multi-custody. Like our biggest fear is a single asset is in a single wallet. It's like, that's the way that we've been taught. And that's the way we've been trained to consider level of security. But when you think of like the fact that multiple wallets can access an asset, that's kind of cool. And it's the wallets that you set up that can access that asset. And the asset never leaves the original place unless it needs to, which allows any type of activity that you have with that asset sitting there to remain active, right? You have an active sale, you are staking, whatever it might be. The second it's gone, all those things obviously don't function anymore, but it leaves it alone until you need it out. And that was the whole concept we wanted to introduce. And it introduces a whole world of opportunity on the enterprise level when you think about, let's say centralized exchanges right now, having a huge issue with whether or not the assets that you have with them in their reserves are something that you can actually take out when you need to. And so we've actually been introducing this idea of a ripcord to the centralized exchanges that uses the same approval contract that we've built, except for obviously non-commingled funds. But this is actually something that a lot of them have expressed interest as well, because they want to establish trust again. So having, again, two wallets access assets in another wallet is really, really, really damn cool. And that's kind of what we've introduced.
Yeah, 100p. So would you consider this, and I'll give a take on backdoors, but would you consider the backup wallet a self-custodial backdoor?
It is, I don't necessarily like the word backdoor,
Yeah.
But yes, in a way, yes. It's giving yourself the backdoor. Yes,
I have a take on that, and I'm going to just give you a whole new approach to backdoor, and I think you should run like hell with it, because a backdoor is a bad thing in a centralized security tool. Like, you shouldn't build the argument in cybersecurity for centralized security tools is that you should never put a backdoor in a security product because that backdoor can always be abused. But we're self-custody. We already know that our wallet could be abused. We already know that we're subject to human error. We already know that we are the only vulnerability to our self-custodian wallet, whether we store it inappropriately or we click bad links. So I actually just want to like throw it out there that a self-custodial backdoor is like,
oh yeah,
it's what
the best analogy I'll give is like, you know, if you did need to break into your own house, you would know. Right?
Absolutely.
Everyone has their own. Yeah, I don't want to tell people what my backdoor equivalent is. It's either the screen door or the window or whatever. I know Wes has a fun story about not the back door, but the backup wallet in general. But I wanted him to get a chance to share that.
Yeah, it's not the most fun story. It's a little inconvenient for the users, but when we were in the Zen Academy Discord a few months ago, there was a user in there, and he was just learning about Ascend, and I think about a month prior was the big hurricane in Southwest Florida, and he actually had his seed phrase to his ledger in his basement and vault, and during the hurricane, his basement flooded, and it completely smeared his seed phrase. And he was just finding out about us probably a month after that, and I mean, looking back, he was just like, man, this really could have saved me, the backup wallet. If he would have just had something in place there that he would have been able to fetch assets out of his main wallet, it would have worked out perfect for him. But unfortunately, he didn't know about us at the time.
Yeah. And, you know, it's one of the things about this space is they preach so much about, you know, write down your keys and put them on put it in a safe and wrap it in duct tape and keep it clean of water, you know, keep it clear of water, keep it clear of fire, put it on metal, but don't send it to the Etsy person to print it themselves, because then they're printing seed phrase. Like, if my sister needed a new hobby right now, I'm saying go make metal cards on Etsy and collect the seed phrases, right? That's my attack vector. But you know, she's good in her career, so we don't need to set that one up. But the thing that is like so fascinating is everyone's so hyper focused on keeping the seed phrase like within reach and safe. And not a lot of people think of the things that can happen. Like, not a lot of people think that, you know, a safe could maybe malfunction and they can't get in, or they have to get a safe cracker to get in, and all these things. And I think a self-custodian option to pull this back is important. Now, what you do with this backup wallet is you make people confirm a set approval. And what we've seen within the space is that set approvals are some of the nastiest call functions that have led to some of the largest hacks in the space. Most recently, Crypto Novo, prior 7 Seasons. That not many, and I don't know of any actually, besides you all, and it's why we have you on the pod. I don't know of a single company that is on this benevolent mission that you are to be the good guys of set approvals. And I'm just really curious of how you think about making that set approval a known good action for your brand, opposed to all the set approvals out there that are designed to trick people.
No, it's an awesome question, and I want to attack it head on because I think it's gotten a bad name as a function, as it were. I'd say the lazy response to what you just brought up is that anything that is functional will have bad actors that use it and will give it a bad name, right? So just in general, if I were to say, okay, well, just because a drug dealer uses cash and all cash is bad, but at the end of the day, I think for approvals, it's just a necessity to make this work. And you think about some really useful functions that need approvals, from selling your NFTs to, you know, staking your tokens. These things all kind of require some kind of a functionality. So I think we are on the offensive to explain that approvals are possibly used for good. And if anything, we can call it fighting fire with fire, right? I think there are also other security, not ours, that attempt to use, front running mechanisms as well to like intercept hackers and to stop, your assets from leaving. Even things like zeroing out your ETH so that there is no gas fees to move assets out if someone you do believe or suspect that someone has an approval on something. So I think fighting with fire right now is a smart tactic, and there will be other things, other technologies that we will use and that we've already been using, that we're talking to the world about, that continues down this theme of really just not making the only thing that matters the key. I think that's like very clear. Like we almost wanted to make our marketing campaign, throw your keys out the window. It doesn't matter if you have it or not. Like we wanted to say that, but obviously it's not like the most kosher.
Yeah.
So let me hop in and kind of simplify or ask you guys to simplify this, because good month you have.
Let's go, Fax. Pull us up, man.
You have a background. You have a background in cybersecurity. This is why you're so excited about this. And WebAssy obviously is a provider of, blockchain security tools, contract services. But let's just back up here, because first of all, I've never heard of this concept of a backup wallet that you can transfer your assets to in an emergency in the case of an exploit. Is this the first kind of product of its kind? Is this like, what level are we at in the innovation here of a backup wallet? And the other question is like, what is a set approval for people who are not familiar with that terminology?
Yeah, thanks for asking this. I think the way to describe it is, yes, we are one of the first solutions. I believe we were the first to propose it. And then obviously other companies were inspired by it and decided to follow suit. I think the game here is it requires a very trusted brand in order for people to want to use you, because again, to segue into your question about the set approval, it does require that. So the set approval is essentially you're approving the asset to transfer to another wallet before it's even moved, so that wallet has the access to the asset if it needs it. Now, the way we do it is that it's hard coded, so that when you first set it up, it's only to this wallet address and this wallet address only. And that is how we play it out. So some approvals can be a little more vague, like anything in this wallet, like an infinite approval, if people have heard of that terminology, is that essentially the smart contract usually, or another wallet, will have access to all the assets in your wallet in perpetuity, which sounds extremely dangerous, but that is certainly not something that we are employing. It is a hard-coded smart contract that you've deployed when you set up your protection plan. That's what we call it, a protection plan, that pre-approves the transfer of the asset that you had in your original wallet to this backup.
And then this backup wallet, do you hold the keys separately to the separate wallet?
Yeah, so there's kind of like a
involved there.
So this is like the meta conversation, because people sometimes go, well, what if I lost the keys to my backup wallet? Then I'm like, well, there's not much I can help you there. We try to create like at least one fail safe for you. Now, if you want to be extra cute, you could do a backup to your backup, but then we can go into this infinite loop if we wanted to.
Now, the really cool thing, sorry, I want to jump in with this, because the really cool thing is like, you can have your backup wallet seed phrase and you can give it to somebody. Like you can take it out of your human error zone, right? And you could like go give your mother your backup wallet seed phrase and know that if you're not using the backup wallet and she loses it or gives it to someone who knocks on the door and says, hey, do you have any like 12 word papers lying around that I'll pay you $10 for? And she gives it to that person who comes to the door. That's okay. You just need to like confirm with her before you use the backup wallet. Right? Do I have that?
Yeah, you
right?
do. And then,
like
and actually, this is really cool. You brought it up. So that person would have to know, they would need to have the alpha that only through your WebAssy smart contract can you then pull the asset out of the original one. So yeah, that's the fact that is needed, because otherwise someone would just go in that wallet and see nothing. right? It would be
Yeah,
empty.
and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating like, you give your backup wallets to all these places, but it's just like it's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I mean you're
it's an
you're
it's
giving
an OPSEC thing.
the OPSEC way to execute the distribution of this, like the entities in this setup. But I think to Fax's point, it's just a very simple. It's extraordinarily simple of a concept. Right? It's just saying the asset that you have can be pre-approved to move to another wallet, and that's it, right? And then that's kind of.
Do you envision a world one day where every single user who comes into your portal has their own URL, like their own domain?
It could be. Are you saying this so that they kind of like run their own security?
It's just that it's one of those things where with marketing and security, right? Like marketing is a necessary evil of a security company. You want to have that big brand and you want people to be able to find you, but you don't want to be the target, And so I think one of the really interesting things in this case is almost like if everybody had their own smart contract that they could hit from. It really would.
No, that's exactly what we're doing. So we are technically and legally simply defined as a programming interface. So effectively, you are using us to program your own protection plan. And our vision is not, you don't go to webacy.com. We don't envision millions of people going there directly to sign up. We envision our product embedded as a simple backup function, kind of like how you set your emergency contact, when you do any risky activity, right? You guys have seen this. Write down your mom's phone number in case you were to get injured or worse. The idea here is simple. You do the same thing. You set up your backup for any asset you purchase. So think of any checkout flow, any transaction flow from a marketplace to a wallet. We become an embedded functionality. And it can be branded, much like how when you check out of an Expedia trip, you are offered the opportunity to insure your trip with, Allianz or some kind of ridiculous insurance company. There is an opportunity to use a third-party brand to protect the flow of your asset. So that's essentially what we're trying, like Trust E on these SSL certificates. I mean, the list is endless, right? So we know there's opportunities to follow that model. I think it's a very calm, collective, systematic approach right now through our repetitive audits, influencers, advisors, board members, investors, and customers to create this trusted brand.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think the world, right, is the world of Web3 is so much more educated by trial and error and stories of Twitter on security than corporate America has ever been able to get their employees educated. Like in cybersecurity in the corporate world, the number one threat to your business is your employees. It always is. You have nation states that are government paid actors, China, Russia, United States, Britain, and then you have your employees. And that's the spectrum. Employees click links. Employees rotate the same password. Employees fall victim to people who are a lot less skilled than nation states. But Web3 has put us in a space where people who have never even thought about it, people who have the same password for everything, they use their email password for their bank password and all these things. And all of a sudden, they get a fancy JPEG in their wallet and they give a shit. And that is where we're at right now. And I'm just so excited for what y'all are able to do within the space, because I think that education has never been easier because the incentive models for people to learn are there. And that's always been the hardest piece. Where are you at with your education campaign for users as you build out this roadmap?
Yeah, we've definitely been growing. I mean, the amount of podcast spaces, metaverses we've been in. We were in the Novoverse probably 2 months ago with Crypto Novo, and we've just continuously been engaging with different partners. So we've partnered to date with, I believe, close to 14 well-known projects out there, including Subducks, Token Proof, Zen Academy, and more. But the entire
Yeah.
engagement rate for onboarding has just been growing pretty quick, especially given the past 2 weeks have just been utter chaos since the new year. I really think this just
Yeah.
it takes time for people to actually care about their assets. A lot of people they don't want to think about it until they've experienced a scenario where something's happened to them, and that's kind of the turning point for
Yep.
them to be like, okay, now I need to 110% go set something up. So we've been kind of experiencing both the people that
Yeah.
have had issues and have been scammed in the past, and then people that are actually taking security into their own hands and preparing for the future. But it definitely has been growing pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there's some basic stuff we've done just real quick around self custody after the FTX fiasco. And I know it sounds like it's beating a dead horse, but the horse was already dead and the beating was necessary. And I think it was like there was, all this talk about self custody, and I think the consumer education was just simply lacking because people just assumed, oh, I own Bitcoin just because I bought it on Coinbase. And then the fact that Coinbase Custodial and then Coinbase Pro and Coinbase Consumer and then Coinbase Wallet are all different things kind of confuse the hell out of people too. So it's like there's just so much that still needs to happen. And I explain it this way, like when you look at things that now we take for granted as a mass consumer understanding, like if I were to say you gotta connect to Wi-Fi, right? 20 years ago, connect to Wi-Fi meant nothing, right? And so the fact that consumers can learn that is promising to me that there are technical concepts, right, that consumers can figure out, right? Anyways, Fax, you wanted to ask something?
Well, I was going to say, so we've seen a number of high profile NFT losses, due to exploits, people's wallets getting drained. It's like a nightmare, right? For every NFT collector. And there's a collector, Crypto Novo 311, that recently, just a week ago, he experienced a hack and he lost 4 crypto punks in one wallet drain, a hoodie punk, another rare punk, big time losses. So somebody like Crypto Novo, had he known about Webacy, use your product, like how would he have been able to protect himself? And like using this example, like walk us through what he would have done to have this backup wallet set up and what it would have done in this situation where his main wallet got hacked.
Totally. So there's 2 things right now that would have been set up for his use case. So on top of the panic button and the backup wallet, I know we'll talk about the panic button in a second, we have a feature which is meant to work with both called Wallet Watch. And so what we do with Wallet Watch is you can monitor in real time and get notifications, and that's the key. Notifications through your SMS and email on everything that's going on in your wallet. Right? I'm talking approvals. I'm talking inbound, outbound, in certain situations, signing. If it leads to one of the functions being reflected on your wallet, what that then does is it lets you know in real time if shit is going down, right? And that is the number one course of action when it comes to just being able to thwart off an attack. The second thing that he could have done is once he did know that an approval was set, he could then trigger the panic button. And so what the panic button does is it allows you in 1 click versus 4 separate transactions to move all of his punks out into the hard-coded backup wallet right away, right?
So
a
Mighty
lot of
Mouse,
this is time
I just
is
want
of
to
the essence,
cut
right?
you off
Yes,
for a minute
please.
and double down on something you said there. The sequencing matters here because you have to set an approval before a transfer happens, correct?
Yes.
So in this case, in the Crypto Novo case, if he were on his phone, and that's a caveat we have to respect, right? He had to be near his phone at the time. He would have gotten a ping that said approval was set. He would have been, knowing that he didn't do that, and he could have hit the panic button that would have front run the transfer at that time. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, and to
Yeah,
add
you
some
nailed it.
icing on the cake,
Amazing.
you actually get the alert while the transaction is still in the mempool before it's even fully approved.
Say that again, Wes. Sorry.
Yeah, you basically have
Sorry.
two alerts there. So as soon as the transaction is triggered and it's in the mempool on the Block Explorer, and it's not fully approved yet, you get an alert, and then you get a second alert when it is 100% approved.
Okay. What's the time difference on this? I know it probably deals with block confirmations, but do you have an average time between these two notifications?
Yeah, I was buying a lot of stuff last night, and I mean it was a few seconds because I mean not long after you approve it does it get confirmed.
Well, block time is 12 seconds, right? And so it typically will be anywhere between, a few seconds to 12 seconds. But I would say that there's two time advantages. One is that mempool time advantage, but the second is not all drainage occurs instantaneously. In fact, majority of them for now don't, because there's no automatic tool for hackers, depending on their level of sophistication, to know which victim has fallen to their infinite approval phishing link clicking scheme, which is typically where this comes from, right? It's like a website with the L changed into a 1 or whatever, and you go in there an I, and you think you're doing something there. And so you get the time advantage to empty out your own wallet before they empty you out, right? That's basically what this is. Now, again, people will argue, well, what if they do it faster? Like, listen, this is not a completely bulletproof, all Kevlar is not 100% bulletproof. You could still get sniped. We are still trying to create a close to perfect solution. And hence, that's why we have an auto panic button that we're launching soon. So why we created the notification product was that right now you have to manually trigger it. But what if I were to say any non-whitelisted smart contract address or wallet address that you interact with would then trigger the panic button, right? So we could use some intelligence and say, hey, we've looked at the last year of activity. Obviously, there's like several hundred wallet addresses and smart contract addresses in there. Those are known actors. Okay, great. Those would automatically be added to your whitelist. The second a non-whitelisted address is even remotely near your wallet, boom, panic button goes, right? So that to us is the key here, and why we're kind of like step by step. We're doing like a step function here to build it out. But today, people can protect themselves. And I've already used it myself. So I already know that this is something that people need.
That's dog food in right there. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yo, so we're living in this time where the FTX fallout has really like heightened people's awareness of not your keys, not your wallet, right? So when we're talking about taking cryptocurrency and assets off of centralized exchanges into self-custody, that matter of security becomes that much more important, right? And so the number one big thing with that security is obviously protecting your keys, protecting your seed phrase, and then the hardware wallet. Now, this sounds to me like the next level of security, right? So now you have your hardware wallet, and now you also have a backup wallet. You have communications to let you know when approvals that you didn't authorize are happening. And then you have a panic button. So to me, this sounds like alpha. This is why we brought Webacy into the podcast, because we do think this is the next iteration, the innovation of security. So with that, Mighty Mouse, Wesley, can you tell us a little bit about kind of where people can find more information about this? Lead us into your socials, and Good Month, if you have any other kind of questions for these guys before we wrap up.
Yeah, so you can access us at webacy.com. That's Webacy, Webacy, a mix of web and legacy for those who can pick it up. And then we have our socials at MyWebacy kind of across the board on Twitter, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. We do have a Discord you can join off our site. We're quite active there with our community. We did actually launch an NFT collection called Grimmies as a way to show the communities that we were the most active in, that we also know what we're doing and want to be a part of it and create something with a story, with utility, with value. And Grimmies has been quite successful, and we're really proud of it. So Grimmies is one way you can actually get free access to Webacy. Wallet Watch is free for everyone, panic button and backup wallet is free if you own a Grimmy up to a certain number of protection plans. So you can read more on how the pricing plans work on the site, but that just gives you a little taste. It's just, in summary, better to own a Grimmy, but still anyone can use Wallet Watch.
Awesome. And then to the people who worry about, why should I trust Webacy to protect, all of my wallet with this backup wallet and all that? Like, I think that's probably the first criticism someone would have. Like, what do you have to say to that criticism?
Yeah, I think it's a trust that we will have to build with users over time. We haven't announced our full funding round, but it's public that Gary V and AJ are both investors in the company. We've brought on Metaverse HQ as well, our investors. We have had CertiK audit the smart contract with a public report. You can see we have more audits on the way. We are doing all that is needed and can be done, frankly, to make sure that people can trust. And I think ultimately, like I said, everybody should do their own research. Another thing I should say is that we do manifest as webacy.com and webacy.co. So if you see .co, it is not phishing, it is us. But just stuff like that. Like we're going to continue to align to brands that are also very trusted. And so don't be surprised if you see other hardware wallets, I'm just going to say it that way, working with us, right? Because this is the software hardware combo, right? In anything in life, you don't just simply want hardware. It's just like generally understood, right? If you just have a hunk of a metal piece of your MacBook just sitting there with no software, it's completely useless. So we're like, how do we pair in a very wholesome marriage between a piece of hardware and a piece of software to help you stay safe? And that is how we want to be introduced into the world.
That's amazing.
Love to see it. Yeah. Never fade security.
Never fade security. We just swept.
Never fade security.
We just swept 11 Grammys. Sorry, I was quiet on this thing. I had to go to my Uniswap, my new Uniswap NFT sweeper of choice.
Nice.
And we just pulled 11 Grammys. So I think we're going to be raffling off, giving away some Grammys to some reply guys on this podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I think, you're putting in a lot of work, just my opinion. You're putting in a lot of work to build trust the Web2 way, but you're also, you're a self-custodian security tool. So, it is on the user as well, and you're really providing a lot of help there. So thank you for being around. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And we hope to have you on again.
Well, Dex is in chat. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. RP got that heartbeat. Bridge built to the swamp, now the apes are barking. Picking up bananas like you ever heard a cat laughing. They on time sweeping. What's left? Got a red of these, call it out of weight. Headed down from the treehouse with a Floyd.